Hi, good morning and welcome to the Pole Shift News. It's Jim from the Mavestar Observatory. Guys, in this video we're going to be talking about the Arctic climate that has got the grips on the United States at the moment. But before we do, I want to thank those few people that have supported us over the last few days with a small donation to keep this observatory going and keep you people informed. So let's begin. You can see for yourselves, guys, most of the United States is gripped by Arctic conditions, and it has got most of Northern Europe as well. And I've just got to ask this question: is this the start of the precipice of slipping back into another glacial period? Let me show you what's responsible for this Arctic climate creeping down over the United States. As you can see, the jet stream, the polar jet stream, has merged with the tropical jet stream and brought that cold temperature or Arctic temperature straight down over the United States. You can see many dislocations and reformations of the polar jet stream and the Arctic jet stream, and this could be largely as a result of added cosmic radiation into our upper atmosphere, and as a result creating seeding, making those jet streams much wider, much more slower, and enabling that dislocation to happen. Now, is this a one-off, or is this, like I've said, the start of more to come? Well, we've been seeing this gradually get worse over the last 10 years or so, and we've talked about this dislocation of the polar jet streams and merging with the subtropical jet streams both over northern and southern hemispheres. And as a result, we can see the deliverance of climate that it's affecting. If we have a look at over Australia, it's having the opposite effect. The jet stream is driving temperatures, below the south of Australia, even though they are still getting some snow in those regions and very cold temperatures. They have been largely, unaffected with, the driving rains over the northern hemisphere, and as a result it's caused this massive drought. Watching a few of the YouTubers that cover things like farms and things like that, just recently I watched Christian on the Ice Age Farmer. You might follow him yourself, and he was talking about those farmers that have slaughtered the herds, and in doing so they've also slaughtered their breeding cattle, which is years and years of genetics which can't be replaced overnight. And this will be probably the last of that quality of herd for Australia for some period of time, and the only way they're going to get that quality is by importing it. So we can see, if we go back to the temperature over the United States, just how much has been affected by this Arctic grip at the moment, and we can just imagine that in those regions where these Arctic temperatures are right now, the problems that the farmers are having trying to get the winter crops out of the ground, and what financial impact that will have on them. And I've talked about this before, guys. What we're looking at right now is going to have a massive impact globally on food prices. It hasn't yet happened, but we're still in the inertia of the effects of what we're watching right now take place. Months down the line, we're going to feel the effects of the prices rising of food. This is a modern world we live in, and we are very technologically advanced, but that isn't going to sustain cities when they can't get food. People will leave them. We've seen it happen in our history when people haven't got the food in these small cities. Thousands of years ago they were abandoned, quite simply. What done that was a change in climate which disfavoured crops growing. We live in a day right now where we're probably going to see the same things happen, and for the same reasons we are going to have to abandon, if they continue to get worse and worse, the cities in which we live and the homes which we own. Now, it's going to be terribly hard for people that have almost come to the end of their mortgages and nearly paid for their house to walk away from it. But at the end of the day, if that house cannot sustain a life, then it isn't a house worth having at the end of the day. People have said to me, where can we go? What can we do? The problem is we've got so many problems, in this modern day and age, where countries have got borders. The migration isn't just as simple as that. You can't relocate now permanently without, becoming a citizen of another country, and this is one of the problems we're going to face. And this is why, after a long time of thinking, what would be the ultimate tool to have in a situation which we could possibly face, where borders are, not allowing people to pass as a result of, no food production and not being sustainable for human life, and not being sustainable for the 7 billion people on the planet. If most of the northern hemisphere is uninhabitable, where are the residents of the northern hemisphere going to go? And are they going to be allowed to go? That's the thing. And that's why, in these videos recently, I've said that we could see in the next 10 years around about 1 billion people, if not more, die if things continue to get worse. And, I say this so many times, we haven't reached the equilibrium of the problems that we are facing with that are causing these issues right now. And that is, we've not seen a return of ample sunspot numbers to ensure that the climate is going to start to pick up. We've not seen a reduction in cosmic radiation. Guys, I've got to say this. We've got 4 times more cosmic radiation inbound in our upper atmosphere right now than we had 30 years ago. And you can check the weather forecasts over the last 30 years. Things have been changing, and even more so since, you want to go for the dramatic change, just look from 2007 onwards of what's happened. We are in, the grips now of massive climate change on our planet. The food production's going to reduce, and as a result, our wages are not just going to penetrate the food prices of which we're going to need to sustain our families in the coming years. It's happening, guys. It's happening right before our eyes, and you can see the catastrophe that is taking place right now over the United States just by looking at this map. It is undistinguishable from the Arctic Circle, the climate, and it could get worse. With the increase in cosmic radiation, the increase in, the prolonged period of time where the sun does not have any activity with regards to sunspot numbers. And on top of all this, we've got the misinformation coming from these government organisations. Can you believe that they completely got it wrong 180 degrees? They said it was warming, when in actual fact it's cooling. What better way to betray, the public, and in turn make money out of it? CO2 taxes, blaming CO2 on all this. It's incredible. And like I say, if we had reached the equilibrium where things started to get better, we could say, okay, we've only got to tough it out for the next 15-20 years, but we haven't even got to that point yet. And so many things are overdue. We're overdue a return to a glacial period, and what we're looking at right now could be the very start of that. And we're talking about billions of people being affected this very moment by the Arctic temperature over the northern hemisphere and those jet streams that are driving these temperatures. Guys, when I say that the cosmic radiation is inbound 4 times more than what it was 30 years ago, I just don't want you to believe it. I want you to actually physically know that that is the case. We're looking at this space environment overview, and I know it's from 2012, and I know that we only see the beginning of solar cycle 24 on the last part of this chart. But what you'll see directly below is the cosmic radiation that's inbound during the troughs of each solar cycle. So we've got solar cycle 24 here, solar cycle 23, 22 and 21. And if we just look at the amount of radiation, cosmic radiation, that was inbound on the next chart down during the end of solar cycle 21, you can see that it was a small amount. Going into solar cycle 22, that amount has doubled, and then at the end of solar cycle 23, that amount has almost fourfold. And we don't see what's at the end of solar cycle 24 on here, but if we look at the pattern of what has been happening as sunspot numbers drop, the amount of cosmic radiation increases, and if we have hit the bottom and we do not get any more solar activity, then we know that what we're looking at on the cosmic radiation chart here at the end of solar cycle 23 may well have doubled. So it could be 5 or even 6 times more than what we was receiving 30 years ago. As a result of that, the jet streams are behaving the way they are. I just want to give you a little example of what's taking place in our upper atmosphere when cosmic radiation passes through, so you can see how cloud seeding works. Let me show you this. So we're looking at a video on YouTube of a cloud chamber, and you can see cosmic radiation background in real time. And what you're seeing there with these little streaks of white light cloud going through the chamber is what happens when cosmic ray or cosmic particles or elementary particles pass through an alcohol vapor at around about 30 to 40 minus degrees Celsius, which is about the same temperature that would be outside of an aeroplane fuselage at about 40,000 feet or 30 to 40,000 feet. So the temperature is set for these particles when they pass through it to cause these vapor trails. But what you can see in the alcohol in this case, because it's on the surface and it's much easier to get a vapor trail off it, you can see the formation of vapor coming off. And this is very similar to what's happening in our upper atmosphere. This is one of the scenarios that cosmic radiation causes and sets up about generating clouds in the upper atmosphere. But another one is attaching those ions to other molecules, building larger molecules and allowing condensation to condensate on that platform, which in turn generates more cloud in the upper atmosphere. But it is the building up of this, what you're looking at in the upper atmosphere, which is slowing down those jet streams at higher altitudes. And when we get more water vapor forming the jet streams, they become very wide, they slow down, and then they start to dislocate. And as a result of that, we get Arctic air in the polar jet stream mixing with the subtropical jet stream, and we also get these Arctic winds moving from the north down around towards the equator or in that direction. So this is what we're trying to build, by the way, guys, here at the Mavestar Observatory. We've put a lot of time in there. We've changed the design a few times because the ideal temperature, what we're aiming for, is around about 35 minus degrees Celsius to 40. Some preliminary experiments that I've done recently with 2 now power packs driving the I think we've got about 18 Peltier elements now. We are getting down to minus 40. There's a lot of wiring up to do, and obviously if you've seen that experiment that we're doing with the cloud chamber, we're now using water cooled blocks that cool the Peltier elements down, in turn drive it through a fan and a water tank, to get those temperatures constantly happening. And when we do, we're not far off. It just requires a couple of weekends to finish it off, and I think we'll be having our own viewable cloud chamber where we can see these elementary particles passing through. And I think it's a great example, not just to talk about these, not just to collect the data on the muons and the background radiation, but also to show you guys a visual of real time what's happening and what really is causing the problem. Again, guys, I just want to show you what we're on the cusp of. As you can see, we are on the cusp of slipping back into a glacial period, and what you can see from here is that they last 7 to 9 times longer than interglacial periods. So the warm periods that we've been experiencing recently over the last probably 100 years are just short periods of time of what we would classify as modern day warming. But as you can see, we are that close to slipping back into a glacial period, or the beginning of a glacial period, that, you know, it's too much to just set aside and not take into consideration. You know, perhaps what we're seeing now with, you know, America being gripped by Arctic temperatures is the beginning of another glacial period. And if that is the case, you know, what you need to know is that this can last for thousands of years. And if that is the case, things are going to change from right now for you guys. You know, like I've said before, we've seen it in our historical history that when food production drops, these cities that were sustained by thousands of people back in that time, you know, going back thousands of years, just was no longer sustainable, and people were forced to leave the city because the food just wasn't coming in. At the end of the day, we need, you know, supplies. We heavily depend on, you know, energy to live in these artificial environments. But, you know, it seems that we're going to go back to our roots of, you know, possibly in the worst case scenario becoming hunter and gatherer. And what we're seeing, guys, is the start of this already. You know, I can't emphasize this enough. Here in the UK, there's a pandemic at the moment of farms under attack from people going out there and stealing the cattle. This is, you know, a modern society we live in, and yet these things, these medieval pillagers are back in our times, pillaging the farms that we've got here, to the point where you know, Warwickshire Police Force have had to, you know, set aside you know, a programme to combat this problem. You know, people are having cows slaughtered on the field, leaving a complete mess of all the stuff they don't want there on the farmer's field for him to clean up, and just taking the valuable meat. And that's happening with sheep and other cattle as well. You're not only getting that, you're getting people go out to the lakes, and, you know, whereas before it was a sport, you know, you put the fish back, they're taking the fish, the carp and pike and roach, out of the waters, of the fresh waters, and taking them home and eating them. You know, when you start to see these things happen, you know that you're on the precipice of massive changes, guys. You know, I know Seattle has got a big problem with homeless people. We have a big problem now. We're starting to see these little tent villages set up in city centres where homeless have got no alternative but to, you know, put themselves in these situations. And, you know, I know what people are going to say. People are going to say they don't need to live on the streets. But, you know, why are they then, if that is the case? Is it, would that be a choice of anybody that is logical? I just say that once you find yourself on the street, you know, you can imagine that the level of depression that you're going through, you probably can't keep yourself clean and hygienic. You know, your health starts to deteriorate. You don't get regular food, and, you know, how can you get back into employment when, you know, you're faced with the you know, the masses of people that are out there looking for work as a result of technology taking their jobs? We've reached a point in time where we've got to open our eyes, guys, and we've got to see what is coming, and we've got to act. You know, we're facing so many problems in dealing with this. It seems like, you know, the world governments have just said, okay, we'll look after ourselves and they'll have to do the same. And, you know, the worst thing that they've done is not inform people of what they're going to be up against. You know, if I can do a little bit of that and just say to you guys out there, you know, you've got to be ready to shut that door and leave your home. Or if you're prepared now to take a gamble, you know, and sell up and relocate somewhere. I mean, my ultimate vehicle for surviving this would be a sailing yacht, a reasonable sized sailing yacht, but it's just out my budget, you know. But that would enable me to migrate anywhere I wanted to. I probably have a reverse osmosis system on there, so I can filter that salt water into clean drinking water. I'd probably buy something that, you know, could keep 8 people on board, so it'd have to be at least 8 berth, you know, probably 4 bedrooms, and we're talking probably about a 40-foot yacht or 30-metre yacht. But, you know, you've got wind power to take you when you can't get fuel, and of course you've got the stocks of the sea to feed you. And you can always moor up offshore and come onto land and get some provisions and go back. And people have retired in already having this lifestyle, just moving around the world on their yachts, these little yachts. And they're not really too far out of the grip of the of most people. You can buy reasonable yachts for under £100,000. I know it's a lot of money. Even £100,000 is a lot of money. But I see some people thinking about moving out to the countryside and becoming self-sufficient, and that's all well and good until you have 1 billion people starving that know that you've got some chickens, a pig or two, and a few cows. And then once that happens, you will be like the farmers will be, wiped out and desolate and probably even killed for those things. What you've got to remember is we've seen it in the scenarios that they've rehearsed already and put out there in those 2 movies, Grid Down, the one that was covered in the United States, the one that was covered in the UK. We've seen how people react. We've got the history of only within the last 100 years how people react in Stalingrad, when the food blockade took place. 2,000 cannibals arrested within 1 year and 100,000 people dying in a month over fighting over food rations. That's what we're going to be up against, guys. And you can see on this chart that we are going back into a glacial period, and that at some point your city's going to be unsustainable. We're so fragile that it's just unfathomable. Guys, we're just so vulnerable right now that we really need to start thinking down the road about what we're going to do if certain things take place. Now, just look at the United States today and the condition it's in. It's indistinguishable from the Arctic climate. Is this a one-off? We're just going to have to wait and see. But what caused the problem? The jet streams drove those Arctic winds down over the America and froze it up like it is right now. It's put the farmers behind. It's put them out of pocket. That means food prices are going up globally, not just in the United States. Food prices are going up globally. We've seen what's happening down in Australia with cattle being slaughtered because they can't get water to the cattle. And this is just the 2 extremes that we face. One too hot, one too cold. And, we've got that nice little environment somewhere in the middle, which is not going to sustain everybody on this planet. So, we really need to start thinking about what we're going to do. It's all right, you're thinking, I've got my seed kits. I can put some seeds in the ground. I can, hang it out for a couple of months. Most people will have migrated out the cities, and now I can then just set up, planting my food and crops and things like that. If the ground's frozen solid and there's snow over it, you ain't going to get no crops out of the ground. Within months, people would devastate every bit of wildlife that's edible around you. Purely out of the fact that they'll be starving. And if you've got any storage put up and you've told at least one person, then 1,000 people will know within a week that you've got that food storage. And I've seen I've seen people on YouTube saying, we've got a little community together and we're well armed. Are you armed to deal with 100,000 hungry people? We've got to really get a plan together, guys. That's why, I have invested a lot of time. I thought, for me, I'd rather be on the ocean where there's not going to be a lot of people. I can come ashore when I need to. I can get my provisions. Most of the time you'll have your provisions while you're on the ocean. You've just got to, move about. And the nice thing about being on the ocean is that, you're bypassing all these borders without any problems. You can moor up anywhere you want for a small period of time if there's friendlies and locals there, and you can get back on your boat whenever you choose and go somewhere else. It's got to be the future. It's got to be the way forward for, if I could get those means together, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd have that waiting till a time where, I needed to get on it. But this, it requires a skill set, guys. You can't just buy these things and without having a certain amount of knowledge. I have seen people do it though. I've seen people with no knowledge at all learn on the way there. And there's a good YouTube channel out there called Sailing the Vagabond, and this kid did exactly that. He was an Australian pipe worker, or working on oil rigs, I think it was. He had an accident that they said he would never walk again, but he was able to. He come out of it and he brought himself a yacht and started sailing around the world. He met his wife out there in Europe when he was buying his yacht, and that's exactly what he's done. He's took this boat now, he's circumnavigated all around this world, and he's did it from scratch. Weren't an expert sailor, didn't have any idea, he just learned on the way. So it can be done, guys. But that's just a few ideas I wanted to share with you, and I just more than anything, guys, I just wanted to put everything in perspective. You can see what times we're lying, you can see how close we are to going back into an ice age, you can see the current climate, and the conditions with regards to the cosmic radiation that's inbound right now as a result of the grand solar minimum and the migrating magnetic north poles. So that's what we're all about on this channel. We're keeping you informed of the main aspects of what's causing the changes, and we don't just talk about it. We've got equipment now going all around the world to get the information back to you guys on the scale of things, and where is safe, where is not safe, and what risks we face. And if you want to be part of supporting that, part of a very small amount of people that support it, then the links are down there. Maybe it's time we all got together, because I'm hoping that at least in this video you realised what we're all up against, and it's important that we keep doing what we do here at this observatory for you guys. That's it at the end of the day. So guys, I'll catch up with you again. You have an amazing day. The links are down there if you want to help out here with us, and I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now. Take care.